Good evening. Welcome to the town of Waukesha. Tonight is Thursday, July 11th, 2019, 6:30 p.m., and this is a committee of the whole of the town board members of the town of Waukesha. We've done a few of these before. This will be a half hour maximum in duration, so we can start the regularly scheduled meeting of the Joint Town Board and Plan Commission at 7 o'clock. This committee of the whole meeting, there will not be minutes kept. It will be rather informal. It is being live streamed on the YouTube channel. We will not take any formal actions, motions, things of that nature. The topic for tonight is to talk about the 5-year capital plan. I see there's about a handful of people in the audience. There are some handouts on the back table there that we're going to be talking to if anybody wants to pick one of those up. I'll just kind of quickly try to set the stage and then we can move into the discussion. You all should have a couple of documents in front of you. One is it's actually on 3 sides of a piece of paper entitled Town of Waukesha Projected Capital Fund Revenue and Expense Stream for 2019-2023. I think Kathy also provided you with a copy of the 2019 to 2023 Town of Waukesha Capital Project Plan, and you also all should have a single piece of paper that on the top portion of the paper there's a little summary chart of capital fund revenues for 2015 through 2019. So quickly kind of orienting and running through the thing that's the Excel spreadsheets here. What I tried to do with this, so hopefully we can have a thoughtful discussion. In the past 5 years, I think, when the town has developed capital plans, we've just developed capital plans for expenditures and have never looked at the revenue side of it. I think that's kind of a short-sighted type of thing. So what I did in this particular spreadsheet is try to integrate revenue stream and the expense stream. So if you look at that first page, the top half of the page is 2019, the bottom 2020, and then following on is 21, 22, and 23. So the point of departure on the top of that, and I'll just highlight a couple of lines and then we can move into it, but we had a fund balance in the capital fund per the audit on December 31st of $1,665,000 plus, and then you can see in the second and third lines there, we directed tax revenue in the amount of $400,000 into the capital fund, and then a couple of months ago we transferred $450,000 from the operating fund into the capital fund. And the rest of what lays out down that then is estimated expenses, some actual expenses for the rest of the year. I just point out a couple of quick things on here. The big ticket items that are on the plan at this point in time, probably not to be implemented, but are the 2018-10 dormitories generator electrical service, $750,000, and the DPW building, $350,000. So if you follow on with that, if this scenario were to be followed, and it certainly won't, but then we would end up with a roughly $750,000 capital fund balance at the end of the year. And if you follow the methodology kind of on down the line with that, it picks up then in the beginning of 2020, follows through to the end of the year, and all the things that you see in pink, if you've got a colored copy of it, that basically is taking the 5-year capital plan from 2019 through 2023 and integrating it into here. So we've got a revenue and an expense thing in an integrated format. Couple of other quick notes and we can get into the detail. What I would really like to ask the board to focus on tonight in this half-hour discussion is the revenue side of this. I use just as a model to start with $400,000 in property tax revenue each year, and I threw in $100,000 as an estimated transfer from the general fund. I mean, those are guesstimates, and I think we need to have discussion about those, whether those are reasonable, whether they undershoot or overshoot the mark. To that end, I would just direct your attention and thank Kathy for putting up, hold it up, but there's another page here that just on the top of it, she summarized capital fund revenues for 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 to date, even though a lot of that is largely in place. So you can see some of those have some significant swings and variations in them. Just one note of it, 2015, property taxes is at zero, and Kathy can explain this if I don't say this right, but I mean, we basically did not have a capital fund up until about 5 years ago. Everything was going through a general fund, and I think we hadn't actually allocated any of that to capital fund property taxes. Is that in essence correct?
That's correct. That's why we transferred $600,000 from our general fund in 2015 to our capital fund to start a capital fund account.
Right. One other quick thing back to that first spreadsheet, I'll point out an error, and there might be others in here, but if you go all the way down to 2023 and you look at the pink lines in there, there's a number of $230,000 for estimated public safety capital outlay for 2023, and the line item on that is 2016-1 replace 1652 ambulance at $230,000. That is double entried in the formulation or tabulation on that. Needs to be corrected. Having had said that, I think you can take the 230 off of that. So the very, very bottom line number of an estimated fund balance, 12/31/23, would actually be $66,386 in pocket change with this model. So I'll kind of pause there, and we can get into discussion, questions. We actually have, well, we follow through on it, but we have a committee of the whole to talk about 5-year capital plan 2 weeks from now. I suspect we may need that time and more, but what I really ask people to give thoughtful consideration and think about is the revenue model side of this in the green. Is it realistic to assume we're going to have a revenue stream of $400,000 from general property taxes for the next 4 years going forward? And is it a reasonable assumption that we would run in the black and be able to transfer $100,000 each year from the general fund to the capital fund? So I'll pause there. Kathy, you have anything you want to add to that while people are pondering?
Yeah. Another way of doing this, although the property tax said $400,000, we could actually bring in our transportation aids that right now go into our operating fund, because we continue to do about $250,000 in paving every year, and on average, and the transportation aids are to go to road work. Now, we do have plenty in our operating fund. If we were to take transportation aids and bring them into the capital fund, then we would reduce our property tax that go into the fund. So it would be a trade-off. It's just where you would prefer your transportation aids to be shown.
Okay, thanks. One other quick thing, and then hopefully somebody will have some thoughts you want to add to it. If you look at this, or a couple of my observations about it, I think our list of projects, and that will change over time. Those are couched in terms of today's dollars or even last year's dollars. Those expenses will probably be higher with inflation. That would be a reasonable expectation. If you accept this model of a revenue stream, we're going to come up a bit short on it. I think there are alternatives, and just throw them out, and I'd appreciate some feedback from board members. If we're short on revenue, one option certainly is borrowing. I personally would likely not support that or look at that as a last resort, but that's a possibility. I think, and Attorney Macios Kathy comment in on it, we could go to a referendum to exceed levy limits. I believe that's a viable alternative. Again, that would not be a first choice or choice at all of mine at this point in time. Or we could revise our model here a bit to defer some of these things so our income stream will match our anticipated expense stream. The only other thing that I would point out in here, and we will get to some of this sooner rather than later, this is being carried right now for $750,000 for dormitories, generator, electrical service. That was $1.2 million or $1.16 million a couple of years ago. I think that is short based on the estimate that we had from 2 years ago. In the DPW building, we're carrying at $350,000. The 750 and the 350 is 1.1 million, based on the preliminary work that the architectural firm did back in July, presented July of 2017. I think they were at about $2.4 million. Now that die isn't completely cast. We will be looking at those things going forward, but at least in terms of the budget estimates we had 2 years ago, we're looking at 2.4, and we've only got 1.1 in here, so I think we'd be 1.3 short on that part of it. So I'll pause. We need some other people to get into the conversation.
I guess being new at this a little bit, I have to kind of digest all this a little bit.
And that's fair, and that's why it's a starting place, and it's a committee of the whole. I mean, people on time of that. We're going to come back to this in 2 weeks. Again, this was just kind of cranked out today, so it didn't really give people an opportunity to digest it. But I mean, if you would even think or look to the big pictures, I kind of put some cards on the table about borrowing or referendum for exceeding tax levies, or basically looking and trying to match our expenditures against our revenues. If anybody's got any preliminary thoughts on those type of things, again, this is informal, it's conversational. We're not keeping minutes, we're not taking any motions, but any kind of a sense of any of that, feel free to speak up.
In 2018, it had, what's a miscellaneous revenue? What does that pertain to?
Okay, it's a FEMA grant and Rupert Milky repayment of some road work on Moyer Way. And so if you take a look at just the chart that I put together for you, so I can kind of explain why the numbers jump all over the place. The first year I mentioned in 2015, we didn't have a capital fund, so we created it by transferring from our general fund, that's $600,000. In the budget for 2016, we did bring in $367,000 of our tax revenue, and then we reduced that amount in our that was going to our general fund. But we started, the reason the transfer from general fund of $560,000, which was high, was we started our fund balance policy was put in place in that year. And so that's why it's higher. We had so much in general fund, and we got down to the between 25 and 45% of the next year's budget. In 2017 was when we first had the capital plan in place, and we had our policy for general fund balance. And so 17 was actually a year that would be a normal process. In 2018, we put more in from tax levy, and that's when the board increased the use the tax levy that wasn't used previous years, and brought that in because they were looking at putting up the buildings. So that's why the property tax, the board made the decision on that year that we would bring in that extra 26,000 that we were not using in previous years. And then in 19, we stuck with the 400,000 because we didn't have any increase from our property tax that we weren't using. And then Supervisor Durr, you were here when Supervisor Durr made the motion to transfer 450,000.
One of the, just real quick thing, big picture in terms of town finances, the town of Waukesha, I think, is in an enviable position compared to some other municipalities, and particularly municipalities in this area. What you don't see any place is any kind of a cost for financing debt, because for all intents and purposes, the town is debt-free. We have a, between $8,000 and $9,000 interest-free loan from the Waukesha County that's due and payable in the next 4 years. We may be talking about that. So technically, we have debt, but for all intents and purposes, we don't. And again, that puts us actually in an enviable position compared to a lot of communities going forward.
I have reached out to both Public Works Department and the Fire Department to ask for their priorities for the capital plan expenses. We'll bring that forward at the next committee of a whole for you to discuss. But that's how these projects come about, is each of the departments put together their needs, wants, and desires, and then the board goes through and decides what they agree with as being something that should be put forward on the capital project plan.
Now, that said, one of the goals needs to be here, in the direction we're trying to head to, is end up with a 5-year capital plan. Not that that can't be amended annually, but in every year since we've done this, we have rescinded the 5-year capital plan and started anew. I'm hopeful we can head off in a different direction. There will be changes made to that, but the intention is not to wipe the slate clean and start over every 5 years. That's not a 5-year capital plan. Again, there will be some changes, but to Jerry and Dan and others, we don't just start over every year with a new wish list. That's the whole intent of trying to do some planning. We don't need to belabor this any further. If there aren't questions or whatever, we don't need to take up the full 30 minutes. If people want some time to digest this, I think big picture what the goal needs to be, and Kathy can speak to it. I mean, in last year and years previously, we were sometimes running into late September or October with the 5-year capital plan without it resolved. And then we were trying to we have to do a capital budget after the capital plan is approved, and we have to do operating budget. The goal and desire, and you can speak to that, is not to have all of this back up until the last minute. I think the goal absolutely needs to be to have a capital plan and fund. I mean, my desire would be to have that within the month, the end of August at the latest. You can speak to that, but we just can't let that go to the 11th hour.
If that's their desire, I can put it on the agenda for August 23rd, depending on how, or 25th, depending on how the plan goes next week. Then we'll bring it in August, our first meeting in August, we'll bring it to the board to do some revisions from what you discussed during the committee of a whole, and then, the end of August, hopefully have a plan to have on the agenda the last week in August, or last meeting in August.
Okay, that plan, I mean, what, you're talking about revenue at this point, correct? I mean, is
Correct.
this the normal, I mean, we're going back to 2015, is this kind of standard?
So,
I guess what I'm getting at here is I'm kind of lost as to how this is all going to work. I mean, how do we know, Brian said we have more money than in the fund, so the budget issue would be the
The-
wish list, as you were talking about, from each department and things like that, and we prioritize who gets what and when.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we know, we pretty much know what the revenue is going to be, I believe, correct?
I mean,
this
if you
isn't
wanna-
gonna change much, the tax revenue and all that.
If you want to distill it down real simply, and if you look at the spreadsheet, I mean, just to make it bloody simple, this is based on 2020, 21, 22, and 23. Those 4 years going forward, saying we will have $500,000 or $500,000 worth of revenue to come into the capital fund. And that's an assumption, and we need to test those assumptions. That's based on $400,000 from tax levy and $100,000 transfer from general fund. And then we plugged in the projects we've got. And again, if you run to the bottom of this, and I mean, this has to work out each year, you can see we end up running a bit short in some places, which means, to me, it means prioritization, and we're going to get into that real quickly here, because we either have to come up with additional revenue, and again, the options are for that are borrowing, or referendum to increase the tax levy, or we basically have to pare our shopping list a little bit. I think it's about that simple.
now this $400,000 does not only, it's not a in-stone type of a number. You have to remember that what we take from our tax levy reduces the amount that's used in our regular operating. So next year we have 4 elections. We already know that our revenue is going to be reduced by quite a bit on our recycling funds, because it was reduced this year and we can't anticipate. We don't know what our franchise fees are going to be next year yet. So there are a lot of things that are kind of, we have to watch what's in our operating budget and what our needs are to do our day-to-day work, as well as if we need extra personnel. Those types of things we're also going to need to be talking about. So I just want to make sure that you understand the $400,000 might not be there if we continue to lose revenue by either grant money or franchise fees and such.
Okay, that explains a lot, I guess. The 400,000 is above and beyond our normal operating expenses.
That's
So
correct.
that's what we anticipate to be able to spend on capital projects or whatever.
Correct.
And basically, if you look at what Kathy put together, that's kind of what we hit the last 3 years. In 17, we put in 418, was 426,047. 19 was $400,000. Now, that doesn't mean that that is sustainable. And in fact, this whole discussion could be really easy if somebody out there in the audience, there's 8-10 people, wants to simply make a couple $1 million donation to the town of Waukesha. I mean, we could wrap up in a hurry. I saw Mr. White's hand go up. Was that correct? We can accept donations, can't we? Is there any limit to that?
Absolutely.
So
We should put it on the agenda.
we could just do that, so we'll stand at the door with a tin cup tonight if anyone wants to drop anything in. I understand it may be a bit overwhelming. The only thing that I would ask you to think about is we do need to to get on with this and get on with the show pretty quickly, because we just can't run this down to the end. So if there's nothing more, I mean, we can pick this up in 2 weeks. People can digest that and come ready with questions.
I ask that you keep your documents that you got today, so then we're not killing more trees. Thanks.
Anybody else want to talk to that? If not, we'll close the meeting of the Committee of the Whole at 6:54, and we'll start with Joint Plan Commission and Town Board at 7 o'clock. So all of you here for that, come on up. Mary, I don't think you got a name tag yet. You're going to be on.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Waukesha, one and all, Thursday, July 11th, 2019, 7 p.m. This is a regularly scheduled Joint Plan Commission and Town Board meeting. We're called to order. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to do something just a little bit different tonight with roll call. We're going to just break from what we regularly do. I see about 9 or 10 people in the audience, and hopefully we've got a lot of people who are watching us live streamed on YouTube. But we have got some kind of new faces up here, and the Joint Plan Commission and Town Board meeting sometimes is confusing to people because they don't know who the different people are and whether they're on the Town Board or the Plan Commission, one or the other. So for the roll call thing, we'll just let quickly people self-introduce. I'll start that momentarily. And there's really 2 parts to it, is introduce so people know what your role is. And the other thing, this is going to be kind of a test to see if people can get up and close to the microphone. We have a lot of issues during the meetings here, people not being able to hear in the audience. And if you go back and look at some of the YouTube things, many of us need to work on getting close to the microphone. We might even let the people in the audience, after each one of us speaks, we're going to break the rules. If you want to applaud or something, you can do it. Ordinarily, we would not allow that at all, but you can be the judge or raise your hands or do something. So quickly, I'll go first and then we'll start with Bob in a minute. I'm Brian Fisher. I'm the chairman of the town board. So I'm an officer of the town, elected town board member. I'm also the chairman of the Plan Commission by virtue of position of being the town board chairman. So you can all clap now. Did that project okay or not? I think it'll be kind of quiet. All right. Then we're going to go Bob Flanagan. Would you go next, please?
Yeah, hi. I'm here many, many years. Just a brief vacation in some hospitals, but I'm back. Been on the Planning Commission for, I don't know, you probably would know more than I would. But at any rate, it's a long time.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Al White. I sit on the Planning Commission. I've been somehow infected here at the town of Waukesha since 1977 as a firefighter EMT, Planning Commission members, and the Grievance Committee, a couple other things, can't remember, but it's been a while. Thanks.
We didn't give Bob or Al their round of applause. Did they do pretty good on the microphone? All right. Nice. Go.
Hello, I'm Mary Cisney. I'm a 34-year resident of the town of Waukesha, and I'm new to the Planning Commission Board, and happy to be here. Thank you very much.
We didn't even have to prompt that, did we? That was automatic. That was good.
Scott Fuller. I'm relatively new to the Plan Commission. Been in the town of Waukesha for about 10 years.
John Macy, and I'm fairly recently appointed as the town attorney for the town of Waukesha.
Kathy Nicholas, I'm your administrator, clerk, treasurer, and I've been here for 5 years.
I'm Jim Radke, 3rd term as an elected supervisor on the town board.
David German, Supervisor 2, lived in the town for 33 years.
Mike Durr, I'm on the town board, Supervisor 3.
Bob Stigler, Town Board. I'm also part of the Plan Commission here. I guess I was elected by the commission or the board, so serve both places.
We have Brian Webb, that is Plan Commission member, that is absent today.
And I am Sean Malarkey, the planner and zoning administrator.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Item 4, open meeting law and compliance check. Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. Citizen comments, anybody would like to address the Town Board and Plan Commission, come up, and again, the rules are going to apply to you. We're not going to clap, but get right close and personal with the microphone, please. So come on up if you'd like to address the board.
Hello, my name is Art Welter at South 15 West 22222 Arcadian Avenue. I'm here related to a non-compliance, and I was supposed to be on the schedule, and I don't see it on the schedule for the night.
We'll address you after the meeting, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, citizens' comments, someone else.
Hi, Sandy Hom, West 230, South 3827, Milky Way Road. And since I'm on Milky Way Road, the first item on my list was I was approached this week by a neighbor asking what could be done on Milky Way Road to reduce the speed limit. I know that's been asked in the past, and there was a legal resistance, or, you know, it's a certain kind of road or whatever, and it would be up to the state or the county. It came back up because there was on the last agenda the changing of the speed limit for Point Drive or whatever it is. But there's strong support on Milky Way Road for dropping the speed limit 10 miles per hour from 35 to 25. Of course, they'll still be going more than 25, but strong support. And then I just wanted to update everybody on the, I think it was about 2011 when I got a certified letter regarding the former Russell Moyer, Gene Moyer property. And at that time, I don't know what commission it was, Zoning Board of Appeals, I think. Mr. Kelnick was given an extension on a non-complying building, and it had to come down in 10 years or after the second time it was changing hands. It did change hands twice, and I'm reporting that the barn was taken down board by board, nail by nail, and is being reassembled in Mayville by some farmer that bought it on Craigslist. So we're real happy about that, at least that it's being salvaged. And the other item on the agenda is Mr. Butler's application. And I want everybody to know that I'm an adjoining property owner, and I support his request. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Good evening. I'm here because I don't have any.
Name and address,
Yes.
please.
Yes, Brian. My name is Rodell Singert. I live in the town of Vernon, and I live on South 7890 Hilo Drive, just south of National Avenue and north of I-43. I'm a very proud resident of the town of Vernon, and if you've been reading the papers, that we are involved with some very serious cooperative agreements, and I know that this body will be concerned with cooperative agreements, and I'm here to speak as a citizen, but I have a history of being involved in local government, school boards, and I know my way around, and I think the issue that is facing the town of Vernon, I wouldn't want to wish on this group. But I think it's very, very important to listen to the people and listen to what they have to say and try to cooperate with their wishes and preserve your township. Vernon has a very beautiful township, and it has some natural beauties that we would like to retain. We have some very nice people who are in agriculture or in wanting to live in the country and not want to live in a city or a village. And I know this very well because I went door to door. I'm saying to you, please listen to the people. Please work out with your neighbor, Town of Vernon, Brookfield, wherever, and try to come to some protection of your own town and protect the people who wanted to live in a environmental, agricultural environment and not live in a city and have their own privacy. And they love small government. They love lower taxes, and they love privacy. And over the years, I'm only 48 years old, but I think I know what the people have wanted by serving the people. And I come tonight to say, please listen to us. As a citizen, I'm here, and I want you to consider what the town of Vernon has to go through, and it is a very high mountain. And I'm here to not look for sympathy, but I'm here to protect the rights of the people that want to live out in the town of Vernon, town of Waukesha, and Waukesha County. Thank you so very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Last chance. Since we're finished with citizens' comments, thank you for those who spoke. Item 6 is the minutes for May 9th, 2019. Itemized is discussion by the Plan Commission, Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission, possible action by the Town Board. Just point out, just a reminder to people, if you were not present at the meeting, you don't vote when we vote to approve the minutes. Any discussion or action? Are we taking the Plan Commission and Town Board action or approval separately? Okay, so we're taking those separately. So discussion from anyone on that? And if there's none, a motion from someone on the Plan Commission who was at the meeting would be in order?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second from someone on the Plan Commission?
I'll second it.
Who do we get there? Mr. Stigler?
Scott can go ahead.
Okay. Kathy will write it up correctly, whatever that is. Okay, we've got a motion to second the Plan Commission to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 9th, 2019. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then any nays? Well, all right, let's take the abstentions, and those of you who are not present should abstain, please. So say abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, possible action by the Town Board, minutes of May 9th.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of May 9th.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 9th, 2019. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And are there no abstentions? That was a full house, was it? Item 7, minutes for May 23rd, 2019 Special Plan Commission meeting. So this is discussion only by the Plan Commission, possible action by the Plan Commission. Again, only those who were in attendance will vote, others will abstain. Is there discussion on those minutes or motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, I will second the motion. Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of the Special Plan Commission meeting of May 23rd, 2019. Members of the Plan Commission, all in favor who were present indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any nay who were present? And then abstentions for those who weren't present?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 8, discussion and possible action on Harry Butler's request for a minor plan amendment determination on his conditional use. This will be, again, discussion only by Plan Commission members, and that's why we tried to introduce people before so you understand who's involved in the discussion. And then it'll be possible action by the Plan Commission. Sean, are you centering us on this issue?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner is requesting the Plan Commission consider a minor plan amendment to a conditional use permit that was issued for the property. The property is 1 acre in size. It's zoned R1, single family on Milky Way Road. Originally, a conditional use permit was issued when the lot was created due to a couple of issues. One, for legal nonconforming uses, the existing barn that's on the property was closer to the right-of-way than is normally allowed. And also there was accessory buildings on the property without a principal structure. So when it was rezoned, it got a conditional use. In May of this year, the Plan Commission and Board approved a conditional use amendment for the property so that Mr. Butler could do some remodeling, remove the existing milk house on the east side of the barn, which would make the building a little more conforming to the setbacks. He also removing some other farm buildings and then constructing a new accessory building. The accessory building would be 24 feet by 40 feet, 960 square feet in general, and that would have been the location where the existing shed on the property was. The issue here is that the roof pitch that was proposed at the time in May and that was approved as part of the plans associated with the conditional use permit, the roof pitch was 12-12. The time the petitioner thought that matched the barn roof pitch, turns out the barn roof pitch is actually less than that. I believe it's 9-12. And so what he proposes to do is to lower the peak down 6 inches, but the sidewalls in the barn, the accessory building, would be raised from 9 feet to 11 feet 6 inches. So it's essentially the same building. There's a few minor changes. What the conditional use permit that was issued, it does contain a clause that basically says plans that are specifically required by this conditional use order may be amended upon the prior approval of the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission if the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission finds the plan amendment to be minor and consistent with the conditional use permit. So that's what he's requesting tonight, is the Plan Commission's consideration of a minor amendment to those plans. If the Plan Commission chooses to approve a minor amendment, I have prepared 3 conditions reflective of precisely what he's asking for.
Okay, Mr. Butler, you want to come up? You're not compelled to speak, but if you want to, you certainly have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, Sean basically correctly discussed the issue. But I had, in the last meeting, learned that the key items were that the pitch of the new building was to match or be as close as possible to the barn, and in order to do that, I could accomplish all that by raising the walls, flattening the pitch, and so actually it would be more strictly in conformance with the whether it's an ordinance or code or what have you. So same building, little different pitch, and same place, same setback, so it's basically same building.
Okay, we appreciate your being so forthcoming with that. I mean, at this point in time, discussion, again, this is for the Plan Commission. Any questions of Planner Malarkey or Mr. Butler? Any discussion, questions, comments? And Plan Commission members, I think, should weigh in. Sean has suggested that this is a minor amendment to the permit, so I think anybody that speaks, we ought to see whether there's concurrence with his opinion or recommendation.
I'd be in favor of approving that and make the amendments for Mr. Butler. I think he did the best he could to do what he's got to do. He's actually going to lower the roof by 6 inches, raise the walls up, and make it as close as what he had before, so I'm all for it.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner White, thank you. Was that in the form of a motion or not? I heard a second. I don't know if there's a motion or not.
I can make that in the form of a motion.
All right, so then we do have a motion on the floor from Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan, and we yet have opportunity for further discussion or people want to weigh in. We won't belabor it if people are comfortable or no further questions. You want to just run through then for clarity? I'm assuming well, I guess I'll ask, your motion would incorporate the conditions that the planner has to offer?
Yeah, all the staff recommendations from the planner.
You want to run through those, Sean?
Sure. The first condition is that the previously approved conditional use and permit for the property shall reflect the minor amendment to the approved plans for the proposed new accessory building, 24 feet by 40 feet, 960 square feet. to include a roof peak height of 20 feet 6 inches and a wall height of 11 feet 0 inches as presented to the Town of Waukesha Planning Commission on July 11, 2019, in order to match the pitch of the existing barn. Second condition, petitioner shall obtain appropriate permits from the Town of Waukesha, and the third is our standard cost reimbursement condition.
Okay, Mr. Butler, please.
I'd like to make one clarification. If you look at the plans, the 0 is actually, I think it's 6 inches below floor, so it's still a 21-foot peak. See the grade, or 0 is floor elevation.
So it's measured from top of foundation is what that 20 feet 6 inches is?
Right. So
you're not, it's 21 feet still, the walls are coming up, the roof peak is not coming down.
Well, almost correct. Actually, the previously approved plan was 21 feet from the top of foundation to the peak of the roof. Now it's 20'6", so it is 6 inches lower than the original plan. And I think that originally there may have been some confusion of the total height of the building.
So the top of foundation to the garage floor
6
or
inches.
grade is 6 inches. So if we said 21 feet total, that would
21
cover
foot
it.
total is the correct height.
Any other exceptions to take of the conditions that he outlined?
No.
Okay. To the maker of the motion, the seconder of the motion, that clarification is acceptable to you?
Yes, there are.
Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? Then if not, if you understand the motion, since you're ready to vote, members of the Plan Commission, all in favor of the minor plan amendment determination on the conditional use for Harry Butler with the conditions as outlined, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Butler. And we are at item 9 now, discussion possible action on comprehensive land use plan, discussion by the Plan Commission and the Town Board. This is referenced as possible action. It says no action will be taken. I think that's probably correct. But Sean, do you want to outline that for us, please?
Certainly. So last year, it was decided that the town would do some updating to the comprehensive plan. It was budgeted for this year. We started to look at some potential amendments to the town plan, including the land use plan map. Just a little bit of background, the existing plan, which was adopted in 2009, was part of a wider county planning effort, and so the town piggybacked on the county's efforts to prepare a comprehensive smart growth plan. The town certainly has their own recommendations and plan map, but much of the data and the background information was fused together with the county as a whole, specifically pertaining to the housing plan. It's a pretty dense document that was a county-wide effort, and just for information, that particular component of the county plan, the county made some changes to it and basically now references, instead of that housing report that was in the comprehensive plan, they now reference the Sewer Pack Regional Housing Plan document, or at least sections of it. And so as part of our effort, we've also made some notes, not necessarily incorporating it into our plan, but referencing it to be aware that it is out there instead of the housing plan that was part of the original comprehensive plan study. The budget and the effort, the scope of work here was fairly limited, so we have to pick and choose in terms of what the most bang for our buck is in terms of what we updated here. And so we have gone through some of the tables, a lot of the demographic tables at the upfront, heavy edits to the land use section, and then we've started some edits to the map as well, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. The document that you're provided does have an executive summary at the front. It's kind of a red line version that talks about exactly what we have focused on so far. And I'd like to take this opportunity right now. I've been working on this, but the majority of the work has been done by Oren Sumwalt, who is a planner in our office, so he's a fourth planner. He's been helping me behind the scenes on this. He'll probably be providing some support on staff reports and other things going forward as well. So he's here tonight just to, if there's discussion on this, to get a sense of what we talk about. I do know that the county is planning to update their comprehensive plan at some point. Their policy has been, I think, they're going to wait till the 2020 census is out. The data probably won't be available till 2022 or thereabouts, so there will probably be another large countywide effort to update their plan. At that time, it's probably going to be a good idea to piggyback on that. The bulk of the heavy lifting is going to be done by the county in terms of demographic trends and data. Once the new census data out, there's going to be a lot more information, and so I would urge the town to take another look at that when that happens. And so that's about 3 years from now. We should definitely take another peek. Just some highlights from some of the demographic data that we've found since the update. We looked at some of the new Department of Administration projections for population. The existing plan, the plan that we have today, took a look out to the year 2035. In the current plan, basically by the year 2035, the population is supposed to be was projected at 9,646 people. Since we've looked at it again, this go around, the current draft, they'll be projected to be 9,985 people by the year 2025. So more people a decade sooner, so more population coming quicker. However, by the year 2030, there'll be about 10,320 people, and then it kind of levels out. There's a slight nudge up by 2035, and then even a decrease in population by 2040. So the DOA is projecting over the next decade or so, the bulk of population growth is going to happen for the town, and then the following decade, it's kind of going to level off. What that equates to is probably about 500 new households from now until about 2040, factoring people per household, factoring vacancy rates and existing units. What that means is that there's about 17 new households per year averaged over the next 20 years. But again, that's essentially front-loaded over the next decade. So most of that's coming over the next decade. So there may be 20 to 25 households per year up until the year 2035, and then it may level out. In the town of Waukesha, essentially, all the land that's not planned for commercial, industrial, and environmental business uses or environmental recreation uses is essentially planned for residential use. I mean, we do have an ag category, but it's up to 1 unit per 5 acres. So there's a potential for residential development here. In the town of Waukesha, we don't have a plan category that's got ag only for 1 unit per 35 acres type of a thing. Our ag zoning district is 20 acre lot size, but our plan essentially is a residential development plan. And so that should definitely be recognized. With that said, the way the current residential land uses are planned with our low density residential, suburban density, ag density residential, there is enough land to accommodate that population over the next 20 years planned for residential purposes. So we don't necessarily need to increase residential densities. We can do that for where it makes sense and even decrease densities where we think it makes sense, but it's not imperative to plan additional land for residential purposes for the next 20 years. I think we all recognize there are limited areas in the town where commercial and industrial development can occur. And the types of development in those categories is also limited because we don't have access to sewer and water except in a couple of already developed locations. And so we'll get certain types of commercial development and industrial development, but it won't be, large scale hotels and that kind of thing. So we need to be cognizant of that. The last couple of years, the Waukesha County partnered with Sewer Pack to do a business park absorption study to take a look at the county as a whole in terms of how much land was set aside for existing business parks and planned business parks, and they found that the land for business parks would basically dry up within a decade in Waukesha County. So there wasn't enough land planned for business park uses for the planning horizon, which is usually a 20-year period. And so based on that, Waukesha County developed a computer program where they took a look at parcels throughout the towns, throughout the villages and cities where new business parks might make sense based on size, access to transportation, and compatibility with surroundings. And so they did identify a couple areas in the town of Waukesha where that may occur. One of the areas was the northwest and the northeast corners of 164 and Lonsdale, County Trunk Highway I, which we already have planned for a mix of uses and commercial uses there. And the other area was the northwest corner of 164 and Glendale Road, which we do have some commercial and mixed use there. They've planned out a little further to the west than we have planned at this point, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. The other area that they had some larger area planned, which I don't know the extent of what's possible, was near with new Waukesha West Bypass, had some degree of commercial development plan there as well. So we'll take a look at the map and we can talk about those specifics in a moment. I did mention before that one of the other major things that we've looked at in the plan was reworking the land use plan categories. The way the current plan is written and it's structured, there's a lot of inconsistencies there between lot sizes and densities. There's some discrepancies between a couple of different sections. When you look at the map and the categories that are described on the land use plan map, there aren't categories in the plan that are a one-to-one match to those. Some of the definitions include some of those categories, but they're not represented precisely in the categories. So we tried to clean that up the best we could to get the plan to match the categories so that they're fully represented there. The other thing that I've done as a draft, because they're referred to this way in the text, is to amend a couple of the densities within the plan itself. So for our low density residential category, the map shows it 20,000 square feet to 1 acre. Basically, that's the density. That's how much land you need per dwelling unit. Well, the plan talks about that, but it also talks about it as a minimum lot size. It talks about it as density, and it also talks about 20,000 square feet to 1.49 acres. And so it's different depending on where you look at it in the plan. So there's inconsistencies there. I will tell you that Waukesha County uses the density for this category of 20,000 square feet to 1.49 acres per dwelling unit. So as a draft, we need to discuss this. I've matched that category, which is consistent also with portions of our plan as well. So I'm not increasing the density in that category. I'm just broadening the range of what that density can be. The same thing for suburban 1 density residential. The bottom end on the map shows 1.1 acres per dwelling unit, and so I've bumped that up to 1.5, which takes off right after the low density residential. So in terms of the actual land use plan map, which I have shown overhead, I have taken a stab at a couple of recommendations to get this discussion rolling, to get you guys thinking about this. I guess what I envision is over the next few months, you'll take a look at some of the plan edits. Maybe you have some specific changes in mind. Take a look at the plan itself and digest it, provide some feedback in terms of what potential land uses can be. I'd just like to use this time to kind of kick it off, show you what I've been thinking, and then possibly, hopefully get your feedback on your thoughts. And I think maybe a good place to start would be the intersection of Glendale Road and 164. And so what I've done with the map and what you can see, the pink areas here with it kind of has a light shadow around it, those are areas that I'm proposing consideration for change. And so you can see we already have some commercial and some mixed use planned at the northwest corner of 164 and Glendale Road. South of that is the Waukesha Church. That's planned for governmental use. And then right now, the land to the southwest of that is planned for commercial office use. I'm suggesting that at least we entertain the idea of a potential change to the classification of that land southwest. That land has sat vacant for a while. The commercial office use by itself does limit what you can do with the property. Basically, all you can do is office buildings there. It's my understanding, based on my understanding of the county, talking with county staff, that there isn't a real high demand right now for office space in Waukesha County. There is significant vacant space as well. So we certainly can leave that as commercial office, but it's something to consider. Going north of Glendale Road, this is the area that, if you follow my cursor, basically this whole quadrant is planned, at least noted on Waukesha County's business park software as a potential business park. And so I don't necessarily see us going out as far as the environmental corridor, but because there'll already be commercial uses to the south here, I suggest that at least we match that line so that opposite the road is the same thing. So this could be an expansion of commercial or mixed uses to the west, and then it'll sort of parallel to the south. And so I'll just continue on. After I give a brief overview here, we can kind of just discuss what part interests you. Further north on 164, near the Rockwood Way Industrial Park and the Industrial Park in the city of Waukesha, there are some properties here planned for commercial uses. There's potential for an access point off of Wilmont Drive directly across. They don't necessarily need access from Big Bend Road. These properties could be commercial, but they might be industrial or mixed use. Mixed use might be the safest category because that gives us an option, depending on what people bring forward, that we could do industrial use, we could do commercial use there. It is suited for that based on what's surrounding and the fact that we could get access from 164 in that location. Also, I wanted to point out on this map, since this map was done in 2009, there have been annexations by the city of Waukesha since that time. So I have shown those as these dashed black lines, and you can see this area is now in the city of Waukesha. If we go northeast to the northeast portion of the town, near 159 and Racine Avenue, there are properties directly northeast in the corner that are currently planned for residential use. This property actually does have potential access from the south, and so this might be an opportunity, although they're small, for commercial rather than residential use. Further to the northeast, off of Broadway, butting up against the city, there are these properties that are planned for industrial use. I'm guessing that was done because of the rest of the property planned for residential use to the north. There's also in the city, there's some industrial properties just east of there, but right across the street in the city, these are pretty much residential. It's residential across the way. They're already established as residential uses. I think these properties would be better off as kept as residential, low-density residential, and not industrial. Moving further north, the land south of Arcadian surrounding Anoka, much of that land is currently planned for industrial use, except for some of the land that's directly adjacent to Arcadian and east of Les Paul Parkway. What I've done here is suggested that commercial zone be brought a little further south and a little further east to match property lines. These property lines along Arcadian Avenue actually come back down to this particular area. And so I think those should be extended, with the remainder to the south being planned as industrial use. There's already some commercial properties that are being developed here that are planned for industrial use. They're zoned business use, and so that probably should be extended to commercial as well. It gives you a little more opportunity for commercial, with still reserving a good portion of land, including a very large parcel for industrial. Let's jump over to, let's take a look at the bypass area. And so what I've done here is the old plan obviously didn't show the proposed bypass, so I've dotted in the bypass location within the town and the city, sort of starting at the city here at 159, 59, going northwest to Sunset Drive, and then continuing through the town, back through the city, and then further north. And so I think there's an opportunity here for some potential commercial or mixed-use development where just north of Sunset Drive. Waukesha County also showed this particular parcel as a potential business park or commercial use. The two arrows here do show access points. While there are some wetlands on the property, and I've shown those as the shaded area. There are portions that are accessible, are developable, and they do have access from the bypass at that location. They are proximate to some of the commercial uses to the northwest, including the storage facility. Speaking of the storage facility, I do show that as either, it's currently commercial, planned for commercial uses, but that certainly could be a mixed use as well to piggyback and bolster what's going on here with the bypass. We previously, going southwest from here is the Merrill Hills Golf Course and the driving range. We have already approved a change from residential use to recreational use for the portion of the driving range that will be preserved. So I have shown that in the map as R for recreational. Further southwest, Piala's landscaping business here. Their business actually does bleed a little bit into a couple of these properties. Based on the way these things lay out and the access to the highway, the fact that these parcels in the back don't actually extend to Brook Hill but are potentially accessible from the nursery, there's an opportunity here to expand the commercial area onto those properties as well. Working south from there, down to River Road, what was the Lathers development. I believe, based on my research, that I know for sure that the land use plan was changed in the west portion of that property from ag to suburban density residential 1. It's also my understanding that the property was changed, the plan was changed from ag to suburban density residential 1 on the east portion. That never was developed. We do know on the west that was divided into 4 lots. On the east, it was planned for a subdivision originally. That was brought back, and in the end, they split it off into three large lots. So it's not currently proposed for development. I know the county has not updated their comprehensive plan because their approval of the comprehensive plan update was conditional on that subdivision actually falling through or actually going through. So their plan has not changed. I believe the town's actually is, but whether or not we keep it as suburban density residential or take it away, because it's not, there's no longer plans there for a residential development. So something to consider as we move through this. One other area that I don't have on the map that we have also approved a change for was for the residential development west of Big Bend Road. This parcel here was changed from the yellow category, which is suburban density, to the low density residential in order to accommodate an 8-lot residential development that's currently in progress. So as a start, that's what I have for things that jumped out at me for consideration. We can talk about any of those. We can talk about any other areas that you may want to discuss, or you can digest this, and next time we can keep this as an item on the agenda for the Plan Commission, and we'll revisit it, see if there's anything else that anyone has thoughts on, and we can pop up the map or the document and go from there.
Thank you for a very thorough report. Questions, comments?
Sean, could you explain what our next steps would be for the board?
Certainly. What I envision is over the next few months, we will revise this as per the Plan Commission of the board of the joint meetings. We do have a public participation plan that we've adopted that governs comprehensive plans and amending those. And so ultimately, when the Plan Commission feels this is ready, when the plan is ready and the map is ready, we will notice a public hearing, which requires a 30-day notice, and hold a public hearing at the town hall where we'll invite people to attend. Our public participation plan also has an optional public workshop, which we could use if the Plan Commission felt that was necessary, in addition to the public hearing. So we can discuss that in detail in the next couple months as we get closer to that. Once that happens, the Plan Commission adopts amendments by resolution. After 30 days passes, the board adopts amendments by ordinance. The other thing I wanted to point out is this map was developed by Waukesha County. I spoke with them, and rather than me recreating the map, they will take our edits and the things we point out, and they're more than happy to update this map for the town.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have two comments. One is, will you be re-adopting early in the process the public participation plan? So we know exactly what we're following. That's a part of the law.
So Mike, I guess my question for you is, does it need to be readopted since it's already on record as a public participation plan for future amendments?
The answer would be no, but I think one of the first things I would do is bring it to this board and have the board, you know, bless it for going forward with this process. Because the plan itself, as I recall, is pretty vague. Or vague's not the right word. It's very specific, but it leaves options.
There's some options,
as
yeah.
to what, and I think they need to spell out what they want to do. Obviously, put it on the website, but you know, mailings and things like that are all options. And I would just ask that before we get too far along, that we look into, you know, that we cover that issue. The second question, and it's, you're not going to resolve it tonight, but I think we all have to share what history we know, and mine's fairly limited since, you know, I watched the towns for 38 years here, but only been here since 13. But the property, now I'm not going to, that you mentioned with this county, one of the last properties you talked about.
Was it the bypass property?
No, where we did the 3 CSMs on one side.
Oh, the Lathers, the old Lathers property.
There was a great deal of negotiations, I'm told, and again, this was all told to me, some of you will know, that with the DNR and the county as to density.
Right.
And that history has to at least be brought to the body in anticipation of what you're going to do going forward. Because I don't know if future property owners would anticipate being able to benefit from that or not, but I think that property, as many of you know who've been here, has a lengthy history with the lands that went to the DNR and things like that, and I think we should at least review that so no one can say we ignored it, and then what they do with that information remains to be seen.
That sounds good. I will plan to bring back the public participation plan next month just to review it, and we can decide which items we're going to include.
So that'll be on for August 8th, I think it is, and we'll basically look at the process end of it then?
Correct. And anything related to the map or the document as well.
Sure. One other thing, just food for thought, as long as you've got that illustration up there, that convoluted configuration there towards the bottom, there is what the city of Waukesha acquired for future well sites many years ago. Not looking for any kind of a response to that, but the future destiny of that is something certainly that ought to be on people's minds. I mean, I guess I'll just leave it go at that.
Right. I don't have too much of the history about that. What I do know is it was acquired and is also in the city's jurisdiction. It's not in the
Correct.
town, it's in the city. It was my understanding that that was a potential location for wells, pending whether or not they'd be able to get water from the lake.
It was for shallow, high-capacity, shallow aquifer wells, so there's all kinds of history to it. So that's literally property owned by the city, I believe, in that configuration. So
Right.
that may be apart from this discussion, but it's probably the most bizarre-looking piece of
Right.
land configuration we've got in the town of Waukesha. So we can leave it go at that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, to follow up, just so we can give him a punch list, he may have to research a little bit of the history and reach out to the city as to how do you decide what goes around it without knowing what the potential thinking, you know, I don't know how you design what you're gonna do and plan with that odd-shaped, situation. So I think your point should be, some research needs to be done. If the city says we have no idea, well, at least we have no idea, but then you can plan accordingly.
Sure.
Point well taken. If they are at all able to explain what their future use or purpose might be for that property, it might help us in terms of what we plan happens around it. Okay, anybody else? Questions? I mean, that's to you and your team. That was I was going to say a comprehensive presentation, a comprehensive plan, but that's probably a bit corny, but very well done.
Thank you.
Who'd like to ask some question, make comments? You got something more? Okay.
I'm just asking the board and plan commission to please hold on to this packet so I'm not continually reprinting it, because there's a lot of information in there.
Again, this is not for action tonight, but any questions of Sean? Direction to give to him? If not, thank you. That's a good body of work. Thank you very much. If there's nothing further, item 10 on the agenda is the adjournment of the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Flanagan to go home. Who would like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Cisney. All Plan Commission members in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you all for being here. You are free to go. And we'll just keep going right on into the town board meeting, if that's acceptable, everybody. And Sean, thank you for your presentation. I think we're done with him. All right, item 11 then on the agenda for tonight, continuing with the town board, is discussion and possible action on a hearing to appeal professional fees. The request is by Janice Robbins, Perens Family Chapel, close Perens, per section 2-244, paragraph D of our Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances. Do you want to take that?
So we had this come before the board a couple meetings back. We were expecting to address this the following meeting, and both Ms. Robbins and the pastor of the church came to discuss it. The pastor is back. I did not get, I was not able to get Ms. Robbins' attention. I didn't get a hold of her, so the pastor is here to plead the case.
Welcome.
Hello. My name is Cindy Christofferson, and I guess it's probably a little bit of an unusual situation here, whereas Janice, I don't know how long ago it was, there's a person from our church that works with her, and we were in an event, and she found out as pastor at this church, and she asked, you know, she was looking for a location in the Waukesha area to possibly have a daycare. And so she asked me about, you know, if you would, you know, have one at the church. And my response to her was, I'm not opposed. I said to her, I'd need a business plan and, you know, just to know what would go on. And so she wouldn't give me like the business plan I kept on asking for. And she said that she was told from, I believe, the state licensing that she was to go get an inspection from the town of Waukesha. So from my understanding, and I told her, we're a small church. We're not a wealthy church by no means. So I said, we can't afford, if you're doing like a research or to get an inspection in there, that would be your responsibility to get the inspection. Well, from my understanding, if she went to meet you all or to get an inspection to see if it was a possibility. And years ago, I used to be a child care provider, state license, and I know that you have to have, you know, the housing suitable to have a child care. So not until just right before our conversations and an email that I received, I actually ran into Janice like at the store, and she said she got this big bill. I had no idea that she was actually with the Planning Commission in a $600 bill. My understanding was, I'm like, okay, when you have an inspection, I want to make sure that I'm here at the church just to know what it is. So when I think you sent it to somebody else who used to attend our church, was like a $600 bill. If Janice doesn't pay for it, then the church would be responsible for paying for that. So I think from Kathy might have said like there was something like she sent a letter in there about why she's not doing it, like changed my mind or something like that. I don't know. And I haven't seen anything from her, haven't seen anything from, the letter or whatever. What she said, I think just from Kathy said, changed mind. I'm still not opposed to having a child care at the church. That's not the issue. It was more or less, you know what I mean, the business plan, that kind of stuff. So I'm not even sure what she even said, but I know that she was trying to get away from paying the $600, and I'm like, didn't want the church to be responsible for, I think it's over $600.
$622.66.
Right, so when I had no idea, like I said, I had no idea, just gullible or stupidity of not actually asking all the questions. I just thought she was getting somebody to come in to inspect the church, period, which would make sense, just to see if, you had, suitable sinks or whatever. Like I said, I didn't know that there was actually going to a planning. If I'm understanding, is that what happened? It was because I haven't seen any documentations for that.
So let me,
Yeah.
Go through a little bit of the process. Sure. So Ms. Robbins came, spoke with our building inspector. The building inspector said, we don't have anything in our code that takes care of that. She could meet with because she'd have to do a site plan of operations, she'd have to meet with the planner. So then she met with the planner, she signed the MOU, Norm signed the MOU saying that the church would be responsible, or Norm would be responsible for it. He was the property owner.
Okay.
So then our planner then went ahead and did the research for the daycare center, brought it to the Plan Commission for the Plan Commission and board to make a determination if a daycare center could actually happen in your church. Okay. And the Plan Commission said yes. We had in our code nursery school. We didn't have daycare center, so it was a matter of
right.
What the difference would be in those two. So that was the cost. That $600.22. That's with, of course, interest of 1.5% for every month that she's not paying. And I brought it to Norm's attention when I got the letter from Ms. Robbins that said that the person that wanted to do the daycare center had backed out and she didn't want to be responsible for paying the bill. So I contacted Norm because he signed it saying he was the property owner. And then I think Norm contacted you and got you involved. So.
Right, which as you know, is Norm's not the property owner. In fact, he doesn't even go to the church anymore. So he stopped going to the church at the end of January. So I'm actually the president of the corporation and have been. So I didn't even not know that he even signed that. Mm-hmm. So.
And so as the regular process in the office, we don't check when somebody says they're the property owner. It's a LLC, so we don't know if he's the owner of the LLC.
No, I understand.
We don't normally check when somebody says they're the property owner or they're the responsible party. So
and that's where, as you can tell, I was sort of shocked when there was a 600. I'm like, what?
Right.
What happened? Whereas my understanding, like I said, was always about just having the building inspected. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so with all that, I was like quite in shock for the whole thing with the planning. And like I said, I'm still not opposed to having a child care there, just how it all happened. And just even know, well, we don't have to get into the personal side of,
Yeah,
but.
So you're coming today to,
well,
what are you asking the board?
Well, asking the board from what I understood through the email that I was forwarded from Norm, that's how I found out about in the meeting and that, whereas it said if she doesn't pay for it, then their church is responsible for paying for it. So I know she was trying to, well, I don't even know if she was trying to appeal it or from the letter maybe, okay, but or it was sort of dump it back, you know what I'm saying, mm-hmm. on that. So I'm here just representing the church, just telling you what happened. I mean, I look at it for myself, whereas, okay, maybe I should have asked more questions, but I thought we were having an inspection, so I never thought it was anything more than that. And I'm like, because for me personally, is as if I can, even if the basic business plan that I asked for numerous times, I'm like, if we don't meet or just agree on basic business principles and all that, we have nowhere to go. So to me, that's why it was so important and why I asked numerous times. And I'll just be honest with you that after, you know how many times I'm like, okay, I knew it wasn't going to work out because you can't butt heads or you need to communicate in order to have a business in the church. So I know that, just being real, but she didn't know that. But you know what I'm saying, because I'm like, you got to work with somebody that's going to work with you, and it's got to be like a good marriage when it would be something like that. So again, not being opposed to it, but so I'm just sort of asking, whereas maybe the church wouldn't be responsible, and if the church was responsible for that, a good learning lesson for myself on how to deal with things a little bit better than that, even though I thought, I was handling it correctly. But then, again, I have no information, nothing. I mean, like I said, from the planning or anything, I have no paperwork on anything that has happened, transpired in the how many months that, this all happened.
I want to back up just a
Sure.
half a step if we can, so we get around on the right page. I mean, we have this on our agenda as discussion and possible action on a hearing, and we have it noticed as a request by Janice Robbins, and she's not here tonight, and people explained her role in that. I guess a question I've even got for clarification purposes, is our intention tonight to decide whether or not to honor her request for a hearing? I mean, we're not doing the hearing now, are we?
I believe it.
It was, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that it was scheduled tonight for the hearing.
Right.
All right, well, I guess then let's go with that, but I guess where I'm a bit lost is Janice Robbins is the one who requested the hearing, but she's not present. Am I missing something?
No. Correct. And that's where, if she's not there or paying for it, from my understanding, then the church was responsible. So that's why we're here, because.
But I'm not quite
right.
I'm not quite that far yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, she requested this, and she knew that tonight was going to be the hearing, and she knew this is on the agenda, and she's not here. Okay, I mean, if that's factually true, I mean, and I appreciate your presence, I certainly don't see how we can make a decision tonight to impose this on the church, as I understand the facts, but I'm not sure what we're going to do. I don't see how we can impose that on the church tonight.
Have we been in contact with Ms. Robbins?
We have. She was here a couple weeks back, so she understands. I just didn't get to talk to her this last
Can I
meeting.
say something regarding that? When my husband and I were here 2 weeks ago, she was totally shocked that we were here. She wasn't expecting us that, and I think from the last letter that she wrote you wasn't exactly truth. So it does not surprise me that she's not here today.
Which is fine, and for my purposes, and we'll find a way to move on, I'm trying to uncouple this a little bit. I mean, if this is the hearing for it, the people that I would like or expect to be here would be the people that signed that MOU, which is Ms. Robbins and Mr. Hansen. I mean, if there are 3 entities involved in this, I guess it'd be my judgment on it. I think the 2 entities that should be here, and this isn't being unappreciative of your appearance, but the 2 entities that we need to be talking to aren't here. Am I missing something?
Well, you're not missing something because that's a fact, but Kathy has a problem because, by ordinance and by her duties, she's required to put this, if it's not paid timely, on the church's property. So I think everything you stated, Mr. Chairman, is correct, but for Kathy, she gets criticized if she doesn't follow through and collect these monies, so we have to.
And I appreciate that, but if, and maybe I'm dumbing this down, but if the property owner wasn't the instigator of this and has limited awareness of it, I've got a real problem saying that that should be put onto their shoulders. I got a real problem with that.
You do have the ability to waive the fees, just so we've done that in the past.
I mean, I guess my thought, and I want other people to jump in, if we're inclined to act on this, I would be inclined to waive those fees as they pertain to the church, but.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
So otherwise, go ahead.
Perhaps we're getting the cart before the horse. Right now, the charge is with the people who are not here. Well, let's leave it with the people who are not here until such time that the clerk puts it on the church. At the time that the clerk puts it on the church, if the clerk wants, if the church wants to appeal to the board, then let them do so at this time. But right now, they don't seem to have anything to appeal. Keep sending the bill when the time comes, whatever the code calls for, it goes on the church. And then they can come to us with a request.
To appeal it at that time is what you're saying?
That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Where is the bill being sent?
To Ms. Robbins. It's being sent to Ms. Robbins in Waukesha.
Okay. And that's a residential address or some address apart from the church, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, if she keeps refusing to show up and refusing to pay, what is our alternative at that point?
It goes
Still go to the church then?
The property owner pays.
So then she would be off,
the hook.
we wouldn't be able to prosecute her any farther than that?
It's kind of like what we're trying to do now.
And I understand what you're saying. I've got a real problem with that because the two names that are on the MOU are Ms. Robbins and the other gentleman. I mean.
But isn't that up to the church to take up with them for some kind of false representation? I mean, let's not get ourselves in the middle of something we don't need to be in the middle of.
Well, I think we're in the middle of it.
But we don't need to be, unless we put ourselves there. Our staff incurred charges, we paid our staff. We'll continue to collect the bill until such time that the administrator follows the code and puts it on the church. Then let's consider what their request is.
Okay, so that would be when we do taxes at the end of the year.
There you go.
But then at that time, if we're waiting for them to pay, so then from my understanding, there's interest every month so that that payment would be continue to accrue?
Correct.
So my only option really is to pay it, suck it up and pay it, and hate to say it that way, but.
But you have not sent it to the church yet?
We have not.
Okay, then I guess where Supervisor Durr is at, I mean, I guess I agree with that position. Maybe we've got the cart before the horse. I mean,
Kathy, is there a way just to move this along, though, to send it to the church now?
I can send it to the church.
And so they can initiate the proceedings before? Does anyone here on the board, we're not going to vote, have an objection to her sending the bill to the church to move it on to the next level? I mean, you got to understand, a man signed a document claiming that he had the authority.
That's right, that he was the owner.
And so they're gonna really have to try to locate that guy and find out, because we don't know, he may come in and say, of course I had the authority, I was so-and-so at the time. We're not saying you're not telling the truth.
Right.
But there is always another side of the story. All I'm saying, if you wanna move it ahead, direct the administrator, clerk to send it to the church. They have to then decide if they're gonna pay it or appeal it, and we don't have to incur more interest, and we don't have to wait till the end of the year.
Was Mr. Hanson, has he been requested to appear?
Yes.
And that's in writing?
Yes, we sent him a letter.
And he has responded to that or not?
No.
I guess my suggestion would be, as an interim step, is to send this a certified letter to him.
Again?
I guess I would send one more certified letter to Ms. Robbins and Mr. Hanson and basically request them to appear the next meeting or the one following that, and if they refuse to appear, then we can decide we go from there. I mean, they're the ones that signed the document.
Can I ask a question again, just to understand? So when what they signed was basically, they signed that it was going to go to the planning board? Is that what I understand? Because I know originally from, like I said, there was supposed to be an inspection. That's what I, heard. And then there was something else that happened that what did they sign?
They signed the memorandum of understanding that stated that they would be responsible for money incurred when they speak with our
Planning Commission.
Our planner, and then the
Okay.
planner did the research to see if she was able to do what she asked the planner, if she could have the daycare center. The next step is to bring it to the Plan Commission and ask for the Plan Commission to make the determination. And they did, and then her person backed out.
Okay. And so she said her person backed out. Okay, and what was the date? Do you have a date of when that occurred?
Do they have a copy of that memorandum of understanding or the letters that are being sent? Do you have a copy?
I have nothing. Norm
Yeah.
sent me an email. What I got from Norm actually forwarded me an email from Kathy. That's how I found out that the church was going to be charged with Janice. And like I said, I ran into Janice at the store, and this is when she pulled out of the purse instead of $600 bill, but I've never had anything in my hand of seeing anything.
If they don't have a
I can
copy of the
I can
memorandum of understanding, I think at a minimum, we ought to give them that documentation. Maybe
what
they
I
can
can
get
do
this,
is-
maybe they can get this resolved easily, but if they don't have the information, I mean, I'm opposed to sending them a bill if they don't even have the information and somebody else signed for it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm happy to give you both the memorandum of understanding.
Wonderful.
The bills as they started and went forward, and any other paperwork I would have concerning this
Okay, and
situation.
And then the one other question I have, because like I said, if we have to pay for it, we have to pay for it. But because it's in other people's names, if that ends up happening, hopefully we don't, but then can like names be transferred into like our names? Because it's like neither one of them have anything to do with the church right now.
So there is nothing that is specifically titled to them. It
Okay,
wasn't
it's
like a
just-
site plan and plan of
Okay, for
operation.
the
They didn't
facility.
get that far.
Okay.
It was for the facility, saying that it's a public facility. It has the ability to, daycare for us would mean the same as what we have in ours, nursery
Okay.
school.
Okay, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could email me, I know you have my email address, that'd be
Yes.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other action or anybody wants to take on this tonight?
Thank you.
Well, that's a question I ask. I didn't read the agenda understanding that this was a hearing.
It's not a public hearing.
I don't believe it is. Well, I guess, I don't know how we have a hearing without the person who requested it being present. I
But
don't
it's
understand
not a
that.
public hearing. It's a hearing of, it would have been if Ms. Robbins would have shown up.
Well,
it
again,
would have
I
been a hearing.
enjoy the information, the conversation. I don't know how we can have a hearing when the person who requested it is not present. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think get her, or get the church, I don't mean her, but get the church all the paperwork.
Thanks. No.
And I would suggest that you send out certified letters again to the two individuals who signed that MOU and basically require them to appear. And if they don't, then we'll take the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on that matter? Okay, then we'll move on to item 11B, a discussion and possible action on the replacement of Fire Chief Buchholz pickup truck 1689. Chief Buchholz, welcome.
We should clarify that a little bit. It's the fire department's truck. It's not mine. We had the replacement of 1689 in the budget for this year. In the capital budget, I have a little bit of print on my paperwork. I put 50,000. It was actually 52,000. We went to the state bid and got the state bids. Dodge was the low bid at $29,580. We went and got quotes for doing the lighting, siren and radio and electronic installation in the truck from Emergency Lighting Electronics here in Waukesha. And we got prices from Signs and Lines by Stretch to do the lettering and reflective work on it for a total price of $45,557.15.
Once more on the number.
$45,457.15. You should have that sheet.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Questions, discussion?
That's if my math is correct.
Did you get any other proposals other than this one from Ewald Automotive Group?
They were awarded the state bid this year, and they gave me prices for Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. You should have those in your packet as well.
If I can add, Mr. Chairman, it's not specific just to a dealership as to who gets the state bids. It's really just a discount that's put on by any dealer that participates in that. So I did go to our same provider that we got our DPW trucks from last year and asked for an identical quote, and theirs came in at $1,300 cheaper. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go with the lower price.
That's what was.
That's the 28,192 out of Badger Automotive.
That's what we got handed out this evening?
Correct.
Okay. You've seen that, Chief?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I think he needs to, I don't think we can act on that tonight until he's got an opportunity to look at that and review it. I mean, certainly if that's a better price, we need to look at it, but I think he would have to review that before we could act on it. We're not going to spend the time to do that tonight. I would move to table this matter and put it back on the agenda at the meeting on July 25th.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to table consideration of this until July 25th indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Okay, item 11C is discussion and possible action on operator licenses for Elizabeth D. Wilkie, Jessica L. Jones, and Josh B. Ricker. I'm assuming none of those people are present tonight. Get information in the packet.
Correct.
How would you like to proceed?
There are no records on any one of the three operator license applicants, so I'm asking for approval.
Pleasure of the board. Do you want to consider these individual, or do you want to consider them together?
Let's do them together. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 3 operator licenses for Wilkie, Jones, and Ricker.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to approve the operator licenses for Elizabeth D. Wilkie, Jessica L. Jones, and Josh B. Ricker. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item 11D, discussion and possible approval of a request by Eric Zunke, owner of Brewfinity Brewing Company at N58 W39800 Industrial Road, Suite D, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, to operate as a temporary second location in Area 3 of Minooka Park on September 19th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. for a Silver Circle sporting event. Mr. Zunke or anybody here tonight? Did
They
he?
did know that they needed to be here.
No, they need to be here?
They have, what the brewing companies at get their permits from the state, the licenses from the state. So, like, what we normally do is we give a license to, a temporary license, or we give a license for one of our establishments in the town. Because they're a brewery, they get their license from the state, but they need a letter from the town that says that we understand they're having this, kind of the approval to have this special event in Manuka Park and serve beer and sell beer.
Okay, so Mr. Zunke knew that he was supposed to be here tonight?
He did.
Okay, then I would move to table this matter until July 25th, and I so move.
I'll second that motion also.
Okay, a motion table, Chairman Fisher, second by Supervisor German. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. On to item 12 then, is to announce a closed session. You are hereby notified that the town board of the town of Waukesha will convene and may, upon motion duly made and seconded and acted upon by roll call vote as required by Wisconsin Stats 1985, paragraph 1, subparagraph E, to go into closed session during the course of the meeting. The town board members may attend the closed session. The purpose of the closed session will be as follows: to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss cooperative border agreements with town of Brookfield and town of Vernon. If you're inclined to do this, we would need a motion to go into closed session. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we go into closed session.
Okay, is there a second to Supervisor Radke's motion to go into closed session?
I'll second it.
Second by Supervisor Stigler. A roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Durr? Aye. Chairman Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor German?
Aye.
Supervisor Radke?
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler?
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session at 8:21 p.m. and we will return when we're done.
sort of a stoplight and, town hall, gas station, it's all kind of right there. It wasn't open. And they didn't get to be other because that's why they wanted our land. Because you also have to, there's several requirements, but you also have to have a certain number of acres contiguous. And that's why there was the Brookfield land grab, was so that they would have enough acreage. Yeah. Our hearing was weird. What kind of hearing was it? It wasn't a public hearing. Then well, I agree. And the other thing is that, as Stuart said, well, we've already paid Sean Malarkey or the building inspector, we paid our bill. So if the town forgives $600, that means we're paying for it. The residents, the city, I mean the town, the residents of Waukesha are going to be paying through their taxes for that $600. And we've already paid the Malarkey and the building. And so we want our money back. And if Brian and the whole group just said, well, we're gonna write it off, well, maybe that's cheaper than going another route, I don't know, but, it doesn't seem like the church should be asking to get it off the hook. When, on the other hand, most important thing, what I can tell is there's the underlying nervousness and death. And she says, we don't usually as a rule check to see if the person's an owner, and they will not. How easy is it to pull up the GIS map and look and see who owns the land? I mean, I think that should become mandatory, because anyone who comes in here that says, I want to do this and and they're about to sign a memorandum of understanding, she needs to get on the computer and find out if they're really the owner. But I think that that's, to me, that's the biggest argument, of why I would, let the church off the hook.
One thing I can tell Kathy told me that is still on the main house.
It's okay, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I would say anything I get right, I go right up there and say it.
You should have gone and Zoom people that sign those papers right from the beginning.
Right.
And why can't Macy's sign that?
Oh. Well, I told Colin, they were gonna go in closed session, if they couldn't, I don't think it could be 60 to 90 minutes. I don't know. I suspect this might be a long meeting, talking about getting an agreement with the town. I wouldn't say, I just didn't order to talk to you.
How's Carmen doing? You're supposed to.
She's at work. Well, maybe she's home by now.
Should be home.
She should be home by now, right, well, she gets done at 8.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, sometimes it runs late, so, well, she worked for Robin, Wade, my brother-in-law, they did their business a little differently. They were open at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so people who couldn't make their normal work hours, like 8 to 5, they would all be, the real busy spurt from 6 to 8.
Right.
And this other dental office doesn't open until 8 or 9, but they do it at night. So they're both doing the same thing as far as trying to accommodate patients that can't make it 8 to 5. Right. So I think it's just gonna be, at least a half hour.
people don't know me, I'm here every meeting.
She's kind of like showing up, but, you know.
Is she with the town of Vernon?
No,
No?
that other gentleman.
Oh, the other fellow.
I'm the one who's got to go down.
The butler?
I'm in compliance with town.
And what do you do?
Well, I have killed too many vehicles on the property. And if there were other things that were written sometimes,
Gossiping, is that why the lights were on?
Gossiping.
So just grab it, okay. The actual resolution, they'll just grab it real quick. All right, folks, we are back in open session here at 8:45. Give us just a moment, please, and we will proceed. Item 13 is discussion and possible action on resolution authorizing participation in the preparation of a cooperative plan with the town of Brookfield. I will move to adopt the resolution authorizing participation in the preparation of a cooperative plan. I'm going to read this in quickly. It's fairly short. And then if someone's inclined, you can second the motion. Whereas Section 66.0307 Wisconsin Stats authorizes municipalities to enter into cooperative plans with the general purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development of the territory to be included in the cooperative plan consistent with a comprehensive plan of each municipality. And whereas the town board of the town of Waukesha has determined that the best interests of the town will be served by participating in the preparation of a cooperative plan in accordance with Section 66.0307 Wisconsin Stats, which cooperative plan shall include territories within the town of Waukesha and the town of Brookfield. And now therefore the town board of the town of Waukesha does resolve as follows. Be it resolved, the town officials and staff members acting under the direction and authority of the town board be and hereby are authorized to participate in the preparation of a cooperative plan with the town of Brookfield, which cooperative plan shall be prepared in compliance with the content and procedure of Section 66.0307 Wisconsin statutes, with the goal of possible submission to the Department of Administration for review and approval in accordance with the provisions of Section 66.0307 Wisconsin stats. Be it further resolved that notice of the adoption of this resolution shall be given in writing by the town clerk within 5 days after the adoption of this resolution to the municipality, school districts, and other agencies as required by Section 66.0307, paragraph 4, subparagraph A, Wisconsin stats. So that is the motion to approve that resolution. Is there a second to my motion?
I'll second.
Okay, I made the motion. Supervisor Radke seconded it. Does everybody understand the resolution? And all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So the resolution is adopted unanimously. Discussion on cooperative border agreements. We will be going forward looking at the possibility of a similar cooperative agreement with the town of Vernon. Anything further that Kathy, you or anybody would like to add to that?
Not at this time.
Anything further, Attorney Macy?
Let me look at the agenda item very quickly.
Sure.
I know we're late, but.
No, that's fine. We're down to 14.
Just discussion, okay.
Right.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Okay, then item 15, discussion and possible action, future meetings of the Committee of the Whole. That tentative schedule appears before you. Capital projects, we'll try to plow on with that on the 25th of July. Salt Shed and Public Works Building, August 8th. Conditional uses, August 22nd. Again, some of those are subject to change, but that's a path forward. Item 16, accounts payable, the authorization of the payment of the bills. You should have a sheet in front of you, the bills for Roykert and Milky and the bills for general purposes. We'll do the Roykert and Milky one first. Is there a motion with regard to the payment of those funds?
I'll make a motion, we pay the Roykert and Milky bill in the amount of $4,684.06.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler, to pay the Rupert and Milky bill in the amount of $4,684.06. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Durr?
Aye.
Chairman Fisher?
Abstain.
Supervisor German?
Aye.
Supervisor Radke?
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler?
Aye.
Okay, and then we would have a motion, if you're inclined, to pay the general bills.
I'll make a motion, we pay the rest of the bills in the amount of $102,118.25.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Radke, seconded by Supervisor German, to pay the bills in the amount of $102,118.25. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Durr?
Aye.
Chairman Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor German?
Aye.
Supervisor Radke?
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler?
Aye.
Okay, if there's no other business to come before the board, a motion for adjournment would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion, and blessedly, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler to adjourn at 8:52 PM. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.